Hi, and thank you for tuning in to the Daily Dose for Spiritual Growth. Continuing on today in Genesis chapter 19, encourage you to read this. It's a heavy chapter. I just want to get right into it. Maybe you've already read it before you're tuning in today, or maybe you're going to later today. This chapter gives us such a magnified view of sin, of evil, of wickedness, as we follow some choices made by some people back in the Old Testament. And yet, if we were honest, the same depravity and wickedness is prevalent today. Now, I said yesterday as we were covering chapter 18 that I wasn't going to cover much of Sodom and Gomorrah, but Sodom and Gomorrah was a ridiculously evil, wicked culture city. It was full of all sorts of depravity. And we see in the last chapter that Abraham became aware that God was going to go and judge the city, that he was going to send. We're not sure what these beings were, if they were angels, we don't know. I didn't get into that yesterday. Interesting thought, but the three men. But anyway, he was going to send them to go and to judge the people. And really what we see in yesterday's chapter is that Abraham cries out, cries out to God on their behalf. And they go through this sequence back and forth, kind of like a ping pong match of like, well, God, if there's 40 people, will you save the city? What about if there's 30, 35? And they're like bartering back and forth. And God in his graciousness continues, even as the number goes down, God continues to say, okay, for that many people, I'll have mercy. Anyway, another term for that is intercession. Maybe it's a term you've heard before, intercessory prayer or interceding. What does it mean to intercede? It means to stand in the gap. It means to cry out on someone's behalf. And when it comes to intercessory prayer, specifically, it's talking about going to God directly, crying out for someone else. Now, it's beyond just a prayer request, like, hey, my friend's going through this, my friend's going through that. Now, that's awesome, and that's a very valuable part of prayer. But interceding is almost like this empathy of putting yourself in their place and going consistently, directly, fervently to the Lord and crying out on someone else's behalf, similar to what we saw with Abraham in the last chapter. Now, as we get into chapter 19, we actually see that God, a man of his word, as we know, Abraham's direct relative Lot and his family were going to be rescued because of Abraham's cries. Praise the Lord. However, some interesting things happen here. And I want to pick up the story in chapter 19. I want to read verses 12 through 14 to you today. And we'll talk about them for a bit, but read the whole chapter on your own. It says, the two men said to Lot. Now, these are the two people that came to Lot and letting him know, hey, you're going to be spared. Here's what you need to do. They said to Lot, do you have anyone else here? Son-in-laws, sons, daughters, or anyone else in the city who belongs to you? If so, they're saying, get them out of here because we are going to destroy this place. The outcry to the Lord against its people is so great that he has sent us to destroy it. It's amazing, and we're not going to take the time today, but throughout the Bible, we see different times where judgment is coming, and yet God creates a way of escape for his people. And in this case, we see Lot and his family being given the opportunity to be rescued. So let's read on. So Lot went out and he spoke to his sons-in-law who were pledged to marry his daughters. Okay, so you got the relationship. He went to the men that were going to be his son-in-laws. They were pledged to be married. They were engaged. And he said, hurry and get out of this place because the Lord is about to destroy the city. I mean, I can only imagine the panic in his voice, the desperation, the urgency, as he literally knows the city is going to be wiped out. And yet he's been given this gracious, merciful option to go and tell his family that they can escape with him. It's kind of like when we share our faith. It's kind of like when we have this urgency that I hope is building inside of you, this welling up of urgency and passion for your loved ones who maybe don't yet know the truth, who don't know the saving power of Jesus Christ. You've been made aware of the saving power. You've gotten that ticket if you put your faith in Jesus Christ, but we all know people who don't. They don't know the truth. And so here I picture with this urgency, this desperation that Lot has, do we have that? Do we urgently go to our loved ones and share the truth? But listen to what happens. The next verse says, but his sons-in-law thought he was joking. Now, the chapter goes on. I encourage you to read it, and it appears as if just Lot and his daughters and wife are the ones that end up fleeing the city. It doesn't mention the sons-in-law again. we could assume, and it would be an assumption, but we could assume that very likely they didn't listen to Lot, that they actually remained in the city. And as the chapter goes on, and you can read it on your own, the city was, in fact, destroyed and everyone in it. It's a sobering thought. It's a sobering thought to think about the fact that some people that we share our faith with, some people that we try to rescue, they do have free will. They do have a free choice. They can make their own decision. But I want to challenge us today. You see, it's not our responsibility to make the choice for them. I wish sometimes I could. There's people in my life that I wish I could just shake them and make them believe, but they have free will, just like you and me. And that truly is a gift. We can't choose for them. We can't choose to see if our daughter will follow us, but our son may not. But what we are commanded to do, what we are gifted to do, what we are charged to do is to tell them, to let them know. You see, I don't want anyone in my life to not know and be left behind because I didn't tell them. Who in your life has God positioned for you to tell? Once you know the saving power of Jesus, it's our command, it's our challenge, it's our responsibility, it's our privilege to tell others. And we can't make their choice, but we can tell them they have one. Pastor this last weekend at Shrewsbury Assembly talked about that very thing. As Easter's approaching, it's a time where many people consider, maybe I'll go to church. And I know at Shrewsbury Assembly and many churches around the country, the world, will be sharing the salvation message of Jesus Christ. How simple to just invite someone to church. How simple to invite them to, hey, come and see what's happening at my church on Easter, and let them hear the saving message of Jesus Christ. You see, Lot didn't sit on his hands and he didn't pack his own suitcase and head for the hills by himself. He told those that mattered to him. What are we doing? I challenge you. I challenge myself. Let's tell people the truth of Jesus before it's too late. I want to thank you for tuning in today, and I hope to see you again tomorrow for another daily dose for spiritual growth.